The Galactic Conclave had convened its 412th Peace Summit on the neutral moon of Varith Prime, and Ambassador Tal of the Collective had noticed something curious in 17 years of attending these gatherings. Earth never sent soldiers. Every other species did. The Kethari came flanked by their towering wardens, luminescent armor humming with enough energy to level a city block. The Dorothy brought their peacekeepers, eight-limbed creatures with redundant nervous systems and reaction speeds that made light seem sluggish. Even the gentle Lamari, who had not fought a war in 6 centuries, arrived with ceremonial guards whose ceremonial weapons could punch through starship hulls. Humanity sent diplomats, bureaucrats, scientists, advisors. Tal had always assumed it was humility, perhaps even weakness. A species still young by galactic standards, wanting to appear non-threatening. He was wrong. He discovered exactly how wrong on the 3rd day of the summit, when everything went sideways. It started with a collapsed corridor, a structural failure in the eastern wing, unusual for Varith Prime stations, but not unheard of. 3 delegates were trapped beneath twisted durasteel. Ambassador Farath of the Dorothy, a young Lamari aide named Viessa, and Jack Mercer, Earth's lead agricultural negotiator. Tal watched the response unfold from the observation balcony above. Dorothy peacekeepers arrived first, magnificent and precise. They assessed the collapse with scanning equipment, communicated in tight tactical bursts, and determined the structural integrity was too compromised for immediate extraction. Protocol demanded they wait for engineering support. Protocol demanded they secure the perimeter. Protocol demanded many things. They waited. The Lamari guards began a group meditation for their injured aide's recovery, which was touching and entirely useless. Then Sarah Chin arrived. Sarah was Earth's chief medical liaison, a small woman with reading glasses perpetually pushed up into her gray-streaked hair and a tablet perpetually in her hand. Tal had spoken with her twice over shared meals. She had opinions about soil nitrogen ratios and an alarming enthusiasm for fermentation science. She seemed, in every measurable way, completely ordinary. She took one look at the collapsed corridor and said, "Okay, move." The Dorothy peacekeepers stared at her. Their commander, a 7-foot being called Harath, began explaining that the structural risk assessment had not been. "I can hear someone breathing in there," Sarah said. She wasn't speaking to Harath anymore. She was already moving toward the debris. 3 people. 2 are shallow, possible chest injuries. 1 sounds panicked, but steady. "That's Jack, probably. He gets like that." "The protocols," Harath began, "are for situations where you have time." She pulled a multi-tool from her jacket pocket, not a weapon, just a folding implement for fixing things, and began examining the first slab of fallen durasteel. "Give me 2 of your people to lift on my count, and someone find me something to use as a brace. I need about 40 centimeters of height and something that won't compress." Tal found himself leaning forward. Haritha's peacekeepers, trained for 17 types of combat across 9 planetary environments, looked at their commander. Harath looked at Sarah. Something in her manner, the absolute, unhurried certainty of it, made him gesture 2 of his soldiers forward. What followed was 22 minutes of the most methodical, calm, and relentless extraction Tal had ever witnessed. Sarah didn't have armor. She didn't have engineering equipment. She had the multi-tool, a medkit from the emergency station down the hall, verbal instructions precise enough that soldiers who'd never worked with her followed them without hesitation, and a complete refusal to acknowledge that the situation was dire. "Lift. Hold. Harath, you're leftmost. Brace right there. Don't let it rotate." "Good. Okay, Viessa first. She's closest to the..." "Yes, exactly like that." When they pulled Farath free, his leg was badly broken. Sarah had it splinted before he'd finished registering the pain, her hands moving with the automatic efficiency of someone who had done this in worse places under worse conditions. Jack came out last, covered in dust, and immediately said, "Did we lose the agricultural annex in the collapse?" "Because we were 3 clauses away from..." "Hush," Sarah told him. He hushed. Afterward, once the medical teams had arrived and the wounded were stabilized, Tal found Sarah in the hallway, washing concrete dust from her hands at a utility sink. He asked what had been puzzling him for 3 years. "Why doesn't Earth send military personnel to these summits?" She looked at him in the reflection of the polished metal above the sink. We used to, she said. Early on, when we first joined the conclave. Figured everyone else did, so we should too. What changed? Sarah dried her hands thoughtfully. We kept noticing something. The summits where things actually got accomplished. The Kelthine Water Accords, the Borean Demilitarized Corridor, the Oran species protections. Humanity's contribution was almost never the guards. It was the people who knew how to fix things. She shrugged. Bring soldiers, and everyone else brings more soldiers. Bring engineers, doctors, farmers, teachers, people who solve problems instead of prepare for them. And suddenly the whole room shifts a little. But the risk, Zhuangtal said. If something were to. Something did, she said, nodding down the hall toward the medical bay. We managed. Zhuangtal was quiet for a moment. Ambassador Farath will recover. Because of you. Because of a lot of people, she corrected. Haritha's soldiers did the heavy lifting. Literally. A small smile. The Dorothy peacekeepers are extraordinary, you know. Once someone gives them a problem that has a solution, there's no one better. Zhuangtal thought about that. About the way Haritha's soldiers had followed her voice without question. About how the meditation circle of Lamari guards had, quietly, formed a perimeter so no one would stumble into the work zone. Protection without being asked, offered in the form they knew. You coordinated them, he said slowly. All of them. Different species, different protocols, different capabilities. Someone had to, Sarah said simply. She pushed her reading glasses back up into her hair. That's the job. The summit concluded 6 days later with 17 signed accords, a record for a single session. In his report to the collective oversight, Zhuangtal wrote, the humans do not send soldiers to peace summits because soldiers are prepared for conflict. Humans instead send those who are prepared for chaos, which is a different thing entirely. Their military is trained to win wars. The people they send to Varith Prime are trained for something the rest of us have not yet named. The capacity to walk into a disaster and, through sheer competence and force of presence, make everyone around them believe, correctly, that it will be resolved. I have reviewed this behavior across multiple summits and consulted 17 separate species assessments of humanity. The consensus is unanimous. They are, quietly, terrifying. Back on Earth, Sarah filed her post-summit report, updated the agricultural negotiation notes, and emailed Jack about the 3 remaining clauses. Then she made herself a cup of tea and thought about Varith Prime's excellent humidity control systems, which she suspected could be adapted for hydroponic use in low-gravity environments. She had a lot of ideas. There was a lot of work to do. She got started.